Hoshuku Haki, also known as King's Haki, also known as Conqueror's Haki, also known as Warrior King's Haki, is a very debatable topic, and what it actually can do and what it should do. Now, in the story of One Piece, there are a lot of different things that have been shown with Conqueror's Haki. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how it could subconsciously conquer the world around you. So, let's begin. All right. Welcome one, welcome all. Let's get this camera zoomed in for a second. But today's video, we're going to be talking about Conqueror's Haki, and not just specifically what Conqueror's Haki is, because I already have a video about that. And I want to do this pointing number where I could show you that there's like the clip in the box, like in this corner to like go watch my video, right? But I don't know how to do that yet. So go watch that video. It's Haki, and it talks about armament and observation and conquerors. But today's conquerors video and what I want to discuss / theorize about is basically the concept that if you are a conqueror, right, your subconscious will or your subconscious conquering changes the world around you and the reality around you. And I think this actually really reflects well with three characters, that being Luffy, Eustace Captain Kidd, and Blackbeard. So the theory kind of goes along the lines of, I thought of it because I didn't want Luffy to be this destined hero, right? This destined protagonist, because we've seen that one too many times, and it goes completely against Luffy's beliefs and who he is as a person, because he wants to be the most free man in the world. He wants to become the Pirate King, right? So this kind of theory is me speculating on it and making a way or a path that Luffy doesn't necessarily have to be a destined protagonist, and he was the one of prophecy from the Void Century and whatnot, that kind of stuff. So we'll get to Luffy second, and we'll get to Blackbeard last, because I'm not sure if it's actually confirmed that Blackbeard does have Conqueror's Haki. But from the way that he's portrayed and everything that we've seen so far from him, I personally like to believe that Blackbeard does have Conquerors, even if he's... We'll save that for the later part of the video, right? But I want to start off with Eustace Captain Kidd and basically his conquerors and how the world is changing around him. And so I brought it up with Brago, and I don't know why my video is being so blurry right now, but I brought it up with Brago and a couple other people that I've heard it before, so it's not my own comment, right? But Luffy and Kidd are very similarly portrayed to be two sides of the same coin, with a couple of examples and basically how their roles are playing out in One Piece. That being Luffy being the main character, and Eustace Captain Kidd being the only person that Oda had plans for out of the supernova outside of Luffy, in addition to him being his rival to becoming the Pirate King outside of Blackbeard, right? So we start off at the beginning of the series, and Luffy, right, is about to drown, and he's about to die, and Shanks gives up his arm to the Lord of the Coast to save Luffy. And then we learn about this and why he did it in chapter whatever he meets Whitebeard at. Whitebeard and red-haired Shanks. I just read 434, something like that. So Whitebeard says, how'd you lose your arm? Was it from Mihawk? Was it from a duel? And he says, no, I bet it on a new generation. And so he's betting, right? He gave up his own arm to bet on Luffy to become the Pirate King. Now, in contrast, what we learned from these last few chapters at the Udon prison in Wano is that Kidd actually didn't lose his arm to Big Mom or any of her commanders or anyone in the Big Mom fleet, right? He actually lost his arm to red-haired Shanks or somebody in his crew. So what Shanks saw in Luffy, he didn't see in Kidd. And so he saw Kidd as another pirate. So what ended up happening is he took his arm, right? So there's two arms to the same body, right? One loses an arm and one loses an arm, but it's Shanks giving up his arm and Shanks taking away an arm. So that's parallel number one between them. Parallel number two between Kidd and Luffy is the difference between what they did within the 2-year time skip, right? So the 2-year time skip, Luffy was able to train with Rayleigh on Ruskina Island to get the basics of Haki, right, and to get a little bit of mastery underneath his control. Whereas Kid went straight into the New World and fought for 2 years straight, basically, and that's probably how he flourished his Haki and why he has his Haki. So the difference here, right, is during the 2-year time skip, it's the same part of the coin. You have two options, right? You can train if you're lucky enough, or you can go straight into the New World. Kid went straight into the New World. So what we see from here is we see Luffy being a little bit more kind of well-rounded from what we know so far, because we haven't really seen Kid in action. But we do know that Kid is a beast because, like I said earlier, he is compared to Luffy, and he was the only one to have said to have plans for after the time skip within the story of One Piece, when Oda said that way back when, right? But now we're getting a bunch of different supernovas fleshed out. We had Capone last arc in Whole Cake Island. We had a Rouge a little bit in Whole Cake Island. Like, we have Bonnie in the Reverie. So, like, we have X-Drake and Hawkins now, and we have Law got fleshed out in Dressrosa. So we do need to see Kid's kind of, like, backstory, his upbringing, and basically what he did during the 2-year time skip. But also stated by Rayleigh is that your Haki blooms, right, in the middle of tense, dire, or deathly situations. So I imagine being in the New World, Kid faced all three of those quite a lot, right? So his Haki is probably on the level of Luffy's, maybe not the exact same mastery of Haki that Luffy does have or uses, because Luffy, well, I don't know how I want to break that down, actually, because Luffy, like, even though he knows Haki, knows how to use it pretty well, Gear 4th is a taxing thing, and it's not, like, fully mastered yet, because it's still taking time off his life, and he can't use Haki for 10 minutes after that, so I won't necessarily say that. But Kid probably has some level of Haki control around the level of Luffy, if not greater, right? So that's that's parallel number 2, right? Parallel number 3, and this is where we get into the conquerors and how it sort of subconsciously bends the world around you, or how you conquer the world around you, right, is very situational for Kid, right? So we know that Kid had a higher bounty in Sabaody than Luffy because he killed civilians, and he was like your normal old pirate, just pillaging, pummeling, that's not even a word, pummeling, raping, like everything a normal pirate does, Kid was doing, right? So he was crucifying civilians, he was killing civilians, and this is why he had a higher bounty than Luffy, right? So if you take this same mentality and you bring it into the New World, Kid is one angry dude from what we know so far, outside of the last few chapters where we see Kid for the first time actually being quiet, calm, cool, and collected. So Kid is naturally this very aggressive kind of I don't want to say like a tyrant because he doesn't rule anything, but you would imagine Kid, if he was a king, he'd be more of like a tyrant, and he'd be more like of a Genghis Khan, right? Where he just wants to conquer. He just wants to get shit done. He wants to beat people up. He wants to kill them. Like, he wants to get the shit on the road. Like, that's who Kid is naturally as a person, right? But in the Udon prison, where we learned that Killer is actually Kamazo and that he was force-fed Smiles, we see Kid very upset, right? His childhood best friend, Killer, has turned back into a monster that he was never supposed to be again. So this is exuded by his laugh. Because Kid says, "What have you done to my partner?" And Killer/Kamazo is just laughing the whole entire time. So we see this sort of duality emerging from Kid, and him being kind of not the person who we expected him to be, but he's still this super badass, super head forward, super aggressive guy, right? And so one of the reasons that I believe that Conquerors has a subconscious effect on the world around you is based on this parallel between him and Luffy. So if we see two different sides to the same coin, and I'm going to keep saying this, right? So Kid, we're going to bring it back to the 2-year time skip, wanted to go after the Yonkos. His goal is to become the Pirate King, right? But because of his mentality and the way that he goes around things, things don't necessarily play well out for him, right? Example 1, he goes into Big Mom's territory, right? He escapes relatively unharmed, but he may have lost like a ship, or a couple of crewmates might have been injured, right? So he says back in Udon, I think it's like chapter 942 or something, right? And he says, where we learn about a little bit of his backstory and how he lost his arm. He says, "I got everything that I needed from Big Mom and her territory. She's not the one who took my arm," right? But you still assume, right, that he took some battle damage. Like I said, either losing a ship, I don't think he lost a crewmate there, but like he definitely left unharmed. If Luffy leaves Whole Cake Island and he loses Jinbei and Pedro and he's injured from Katakuri, there's no way that Kid escapes on a cleaner slate than him, right? Because they're rivals. They have to be essentially around the same power level. and they essentially have to leave with the same amount of damages. So Kid might have lost somebody, he might not have lost somebody. Second part of it, right, and this is why I think Kid kind of gets the short end of the stick due to his mentality, is he is so upfront and so standalone. It's very prevalent when Kaido falls down from the Sky Island, and Hawkins, Apu, and I think those are the only ones in the Alliance that Kid was fortunate to take down Red Hair Shanks. Hawkins and Apu immediately join Kaido's side, and Kid's like, nope, that's not me. I'm not going to be subservient. I'm going to rule these seas, right? And so he takes on Kaido, presumably one-on-one, and gets mollywopped. Same thing that happened to Luffy, right? The parallels here. He might have fought with Killer. He might have fought with his whole entire crew. I don't know if this was him fighting him on that island that Kaido fell off of, or if they invaded Wano afterwards, and then he's the one who got locked up. But because Kid has such a brute mentality, right, and he isn't fully trained or up to the power levels of Yonkos, maybe even Admirals so far, right? He's not a top 10 character. This attitude of becoming the king without having the strength to back it up is what's kind of backfiring on him, right? So if Kid actually possessed the strength to take on a Yonko and was considered, let's say, the 6th Yonko, right? So let's say Kid was in Whole Cake Island, and then Morgan portrays him to be the 5th Yonko before Luffy, right? We assume that he's up there, closer to Yonko level, but he's more of like a Yonko Commander level, how Luffy is now, depending on how you see his mastery of Gear Force Snake Man, Bound Man, and his overall base stats, right? Excluding territory and like total DC and all that. But Kid, right? Let's say he was proclaimed the 5th Emperor before Luffy. We assume that it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a lot more hype, though, because there's a 5th Emperor that isn't Luffy first, right? And that's Kid. If Kid could actually back it up and had that strength to do it, I think we would have a little bit different of a situation. Let's say Kid was as strong as a 1st Yonko Commander level, a little bit above Luffy right now, and takes on Kaido. If his strength was able to back him up, I don't think he would have been captured, right? Because Luffy was captured in the same way, and Luffy's held on such a higher pedestal than the rest of the supernovas, excluding Blackbeard. So with Kid's whole entire mentality and everything that he's been doing in the new world that we also learned that Kid has Conqueror's Haki from Kaido, because Kaido says when he kills Luffy, when Kaido one-shots Luffy, he says, oh, Conquers, because Luffy's staring at him unconsciously, right? And then knocks out all the fodder around him. He says, I don't know if this is some sort of false bravado or if this is pure guts, right? And he says, but this kid has been staring at me. And everybody says, Kaido's unconscious. And he says, no, we don't need any more conquerors on the sea just like that brat Kid. And that's where we got the sub-confirmation that Kid actually has conquerors, right? So what we're seeing is these two different variants between Kid and Luffy when it comes to changing the world around him. Being on the same side of the coins, Kid, let's just say Kid is tails and Luffy is heads, right? Luffy, because he's so energetic and passionate and he wants to be free, right? He wants to help those around him without sharing his meat, is basically what he says. He doesn't want to be a hero. But the world is changing him as well, whereas Kid is the complete opposite, and he wants to conquer the world, but bad things are happening to him because his Conqueror's Haki isn't as strong as the rest. So his reality bending, or everything that's happening to him, his, per se, bad luck, is based on what I believe his sole fact of his Conqueror's Haki and his mentality when it comes on to taking into the new world. So after that, we're going to talk about Luffy, and we're going to talk about him briefly because I've been intertwining in between Luffy and Kid. Now in regards to Luffy and his aspect of conquerors and changing the world around him, a lot of people now are saying that Luffy is this destined, this chosen one, a child of prophecy, right? A Naruto, whoever else is a child of prophecy, right? And this really contradicts Luffy as a person. So from the start of the series, right, Luffy wanted to become the Pirate King because of what that meant to him was being the freest man on the sea, right? Freest, destined, right? Free literally means own choices, able to do anything you want. Destined means that everything happens for a reason, and all of these reasons are accumulating towards an end goal, right? So personally, I don't like the idea of Luffy being destined or the chosen one, but you can't you can't disregard the fact that he's very, 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 very lucky, right? He has plot armor. He does, because he's the MC. Let's not get around it, right? He has plot armor. However, this plot armor could be also a side effect of his conquerors before he even had it or not, right? So the way I think about it, right, is Luffy has this innate ability to draw other people around him. This is explained by Mihawk, saying this is the deadliest power on the sea, is that this man can turn anyone around him into an ally and people end up fighting for him, right? And that's who Luffy is as a person. He brings out kind of like the best in people. He sees the best in people, even though he's not the most eloquently spoken or like morally driven character, right? Like there's this aura around him that attracts people to him, and this is just a part of his personality, right? So his conquerors reflects that, right? Like if he's going to conquer the Grand Line, he's going to make friends along the way. He's going to make allies. He's going to have alliances. Everything that we've seen so far from the beginning of the series, like Zoro, Usopp, Nami, Sanji, Frankie, Brook, Robin, Chopper. I know those are all out of order. Jinbei. Like everyone within the Straw Hat Alliance is following Luffy for a reason. It's because Luffy is bringing out or is going to get them to their end goal of their dream, right? Sanji, all blue. Chopper, best medical doctor in the world. Nami, best navigator in the world, drawing a map of all of the oceans. Robin, being free, no longer having to face the world government or being afraid of them. Brook, reuniting with Laboon. Frankie being... The fuck is Frankie's dream? I forgot Frankie's dream. Usopp, being a brave warrior of the sea. Sanji, seeing the all blue. Luffy's personality and the way that he attracts people around him is because he's bringing out the best in other people, right? And you see this with every arc. We can go back to Fishman Island. He frees Fishman Island from Big Mom, claims it as his territory. After Fishman Island, we go to Punk Hazard. He frees the children, right? And then Chopper and who's the other guy helping out with the children? Chopper's got a cure for the children, right? We move on to Dressrosa. He frees Dressrosa from the clutches of Dofi, right? Makes allies there. Fujitora apologizes to them and goes against the world government. Zoe frees... He doesn't free Zoe, but they help out with Zoe. They figure out that Raizo is still alive. Now we're in Wano, or Whole Cake Island, right? He helps kind of... Who does Luffy help the most in Whole Cake Island? Let's just say Katakuri, right? Like, he brings forth in light to Katakuri, saying like, hey, you're your own man. You don't have to be this anymore. A pirate is a pirate. Be who you want to be, right? So like Luffy's just innate willpower to make people start believing in themselves is kind of like this reflection of this luck that he gets back, right? So his conquerors works in the... Actually, you know what? Conquerors kind of works from what I'm theorizing about, like in the same way of karma, right? If we go back to Kid, like he wants to just pillage, pummel, and destroy, and he just wants to conquer through brute force, and then he's kind of getting like the shit out of the stick back. Whereas Luffy, right? He's indirectly helping, right? And this might be sort of the cause of his luck. This might be why he met his crewmates. This might be why that he escaped Marineford. This might be why that he has plot armor. Luffy's conquering ability, right? Or Conqueror's Haki is slowly subconsciously changing his psyche, right? So like we get into Wano and he says, I made a promise to Otama so that she'll never have to be hungry again. It's the same promise that Ace gave her. He said, I'll be back and I'll make sure that you can feed to your fullest every single day. And he's saying like this in a term of endearment. And he's saying this like, I want to conquer this land for you. So he's ultimately changing the world around him because the world around him, or the world is changing him, right? So to become the freest man on the ocean, to become the pirate king, right? Like I said earlier, you have to have allies, alliances, friends. You are going to make some enemies along the way. That's just how life is. But Luffy is garnering all these type of things because that's who he is as a conqueror and that's who he is as a leader. He's more of like a, who's a good leader like that? Abe Lincoln? He's kind of an Abe Lincoln, kind of a JFK. I don't know of any like good leaders like that from history, honestly. I think the Genghis Khan one for Kid was just spot on, but he's one of those leaders, right, that's at the front of the battles. He's a Jon Snow. That's who Luffy is, right? Like Jon Snow doesn't want to be king. Luffy just wants to be pirate king. Like he doesn't necessarily want to like rule over people. He wants to be the pirate king in title, right? Like that's who he wants to be, the freest man in the ocean. That's so sick. Luffy's Jon Snow. So John and Luffy are always at the front, right? They're always giving the power back to the people. Look at the last few chapters in Udon where he gives the speech and he takes on the pain of the mummy virus that Queen's bullets infected all of the prisoners with. He said, this is nothing but pain that you guys have accumulated for the last 20 years, and you're not strong enough to break it. So Luffy is a leader by example, and this is what I think is kind of changing the world around him, because so many people are interacting with him. People are seeing this kind of like light that Luffy is, and this is why he may be lucky. This might be why he's what people can perceive as destined. But like me personally, I think this level of conquerors, right, is just a reflection of willpower and the reflection of your personality on the world around you. So now that Luffy's is a little bit shorter, what I want to get into is Blackbeard. And Blackbeard is kind of like a tricky middle ground. And I'm going to take a sip real quick. I'm not sponsored, but we drink bubblies too. So Blackbeard, right? Marshall D. Teach, the endgame antagonist, if Imusama isn't the endgame antagonist. The Raftel antagonist, right? The big bad of the series. 2 devil fruits. I can't do it really well, but Blackbeard, right? Let's get into him. Whitebeard ship, 20 years. Calculated. Absolutely mischievous. Maybe one of the smartest thinkers in the whole entire series of One Piece, right? Marshall D. Teach. Waits 20 years for the Yami Yami no Mi, dark fruit. This is what he wants. He said this is the key, this is the cornerstone of him becoming the Pirate King. Backstabs Teach, right? Literally backstabs him. Disbands from Whitebeard's pirate crew, starts his own pirate crew, joins the Shishibukai, was a 0 berry bounty, right? Like, this dude did not do a single thing to ruin his reputation or get his name out there, right? The complete underdog from the middle of nothing. Complete darkness, just like his fruit, right? Cool, calm, collected, calculated, mischievous, conniving, like any word you can think of to describe Blackbeard, that's how he is, and that's his personality. He's such a masterful chess player, right? And we see this reflected in the world around Blackbeard from everything that he's calculated, right? I don't know if I said this before or not, but I don't think Blackbeard's confirmed to have Conqueror's Haki, but like I said, I think he has Conqueror's Haki, right? So what happens is then we get to Marineford, right? And he shows up at the exact perfect time, kind of plot armor, right? Like to where he shows up to where Whitebeard is already 99% dead. He goes, stabs him, everybody in his crew shoots him, right? He's dead, and he says, let me show you a magic trick. And he throws up the curtain Curtain drops. Next thing you know, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, 30 seconds later, however long it came about, he now has the Gurgur no Mi, the earthquake fruit. He now has 2 devil fruits. Like I said, calculated, plant. The world somehow succumbed to his will, right? For him to get those 2 devil fruits. Of course, he is built different, so that's why he's able to have 2 devil fruits. We don't know the exact specifications of that yet, or the reasoning why behind it. If he has 2 bodies, 2 souls, if he's like some sort of world government technology thing that left at an early age, who knows, right? We'll get the Blackbeard backstory probably in Raftel. I'm gonna cry over it. Blackbeard's like top 4, 5 favorite characters, honestly. But just because of the way that he analyzes everything, and he can wait, he can sacrifice pawns, right, to get a queen. He can sacrifice knights to get a king. Like, he is so calculated that this world is bending around him. After Marineford, he gained such a presence and a following, right, that he took down 17 Whitebeard territories and claimed them for his own, with no bad casualties. Then we get the payback war, where Marco goes with the rest of the Whitebeard crew to fight Blackbeard for revenge, and Blackbeard somehow swats them away. And then the Whitebeard crew disbanded, right? Everything is calculated to his plans. So his world is kind of giving, the world of One Piece is kind of giving him plot armor. He's staying back. He's playing his chess pieces. He's waiting for the other Yonkos to fall, right? To invade their territories. That's how he got Whitebeard's territories. So, like, the way that I see Blackbeard and his sort of subconscious psyche of, like, him changing the world around him is that it's also the other coin that Luffy sits on, right? Like, these 2 are a lot more similar than Kid and Luffy, even though they're on like a three-sided coin. I don't know how you can do that. They're all kind of the same, right? So Blackbeard, right, like believes in his dreams. During the speech to Luffy and Jaya, he says, "Don't give up on your dreams. Pirates who give up on their dreams aren't pirates," right? Like he's I don't know if he loves his crew entirely as Luffy, but he holds them on a high regard as well, right? Like I don't shit, I'm getting off track on how similar they are. But like everybody knows that Blackbeard fights for what he wants to fight for, right? Like Luffy fights for what he wants to fight for. Both of their dreams to become the Pirate King, to reach Raftel. So like Blackbeard's world and the world of One Piece revolving around him, as I see it, is the world is changing kind of its courses of actions for him to strike, for him to plot out his plans, because he has been planning for such a long time. So I think that's going to do it for me in this video. I really hope you guys enjoy this kind of like new topic about Conqueror's Haki, because I think there is a deeper meaning that I've been talking about for the last 20 minutes or so to Conqueror's Haki. I don't think it's just a technique that you can use to knock out fodder. I think it goes a lot further than what we've seen so far, and this is hopefully kind of my idea getting out there and like my theory about it. So like, comment, subscribe if you guys have any idea or theories. I gotta trim this one hair in my mustache, it's been bugging me. If you guys have any theories, any comments about some form of subconscious Conqueror's Haki changing the world around you, please link them down below. Find me on Twitter, @Haslam. Actually, no, my name's Watermelon Crusher because I crush watermelons with my legs. Find me on Instagram, name's Haslam. And until then, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.